Welcome to the Car Guys, and the world has gone mad because someone has just paid nearly £600,000 for a flippin' Ford Sierra Cosworth RS500. Let that sink in for a minute. A Ford, a homologated family car from the 80s, has just sold for the price of a fully spec'd up 812 Competizione.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me!
Which means we've officially entered the Twilight Zone. And it means we have to talk about just what the hell is going on with 80s and 90s cars at the moment. Why are they appreciating so quickly? What is driving it? And will it continue? And also, what cars are next? In other words, sounds like an episode of The Car Guys. It's 2023 and the Silverstone Auctions Race Retro Classics and Competition Car Sale is in full swing. This year's event is rammed with interesting and evocative metal, and the bidding room is buoyant and boisterous. Many early lots are fetching reasonable money. The hammer goes down on a big turbo Ford Escort Cosworth for 65,000 quid, nothing unusual there. A BMW 3-litre CSL fetches nearly 130,000. A brace of rare famous Lotus Elans predictably sell well, and an M3 CSL goes for an unsurprising £78,000. There is no hint of what is about to transpire and how it will redefine the world of 80s and 90s classic car prices. The lots come and go. A Tommy Mackinnon Mitsubishi, a Ferrari 512 BB, and a mean-looking Dodge Charger. And then 7.5 hours into the auction comes lot number 508, a 1987 Ford Sierra Cosworth RS500, a rare car to be sure, with only 500 made, but with a reserve of £150,000 to £180,000, it already looks expensive. Okay, so it only had 5,192 miles on the odometer, and many consider it to be the ultimate fast Ford with 224 brake horsepower and a homologated hand-assembled bodywork. But it's still just a hot Sierra. Bidding started at £110,000 and moved quickly to £150,000, and it almost looked to be selling at that price, but then it moved to £200,000, with some elation from the auctioneers. And then it all started to go a bit mental. £250,000, £300,000, £340,000. The audience started to get excited. £380,000, £400,000 from Dubai. The hammer was up. Are we all done? No! 420, 450. Is this going to be the car that makes £500,000? 480, 490, £500,000. Going once, going twice, third and final time, 520,000. And yes, it went for £530,000 plus fees. And that takes us to a quite unbelievable total of £590,000. Whew! What is going on, people? Now, a couple of things to mention. The winning bidder was from the Middle East, which almost certainly means that £600,000 is pocket change. And it actually only takes two people who want something equally badly to transform an auction into a bidding war. But this was actually just the latest in a long line of increasing prices for 80s and 90s cars like the Nissan Skyline, XR3i, Peugeot 205, Mazda RX-7, Lancia Integrale, Ford Sierra RS Cosworth, Honda NSX and Nissan 300ZX. So why is this happening? Well, three main reasons actually. Generation X, nostalgia and a shortage of cars. And I can talk about this with complete authority because I am smack bang in the middle of this phenomenon, as you can no doubt tell from the Car Guys collection. So let's look at each one of these causes in a bit more detail. Generation X. This is a group of adults born between 1965 and 1980, which means they are now 43 to 57 years old, and that puts them at a very specific point in their lives. The Gen X generation were growing up and starting work in the 80s and 90s, which means they were extremely influenced by the explosion of pop culture and art, and also took advantage of personal mobility in the form of ever-reliable, affordable and exciting cars. And guess what? They are now extremely affluent. They own their own houses or multiple properties, they're advanced in their careers or are actually retired, and they're indulging in hobbies and personal passions. And crucially, when it comes to 80s and 90s cars, they are wanting to recreate their youth and also pining for the cars that they couldn't afford at the time. Which leads to a massive amount of nostalgia. One of the defining characteristics of the Gen Xers is a healthy dollop of nostalgia for life before things like the internet, before social media, before speed cameras. If you wanted music, you bought an LP from our price, or if you were posh, you'd buy one of those newfangled compact discs from HMV. If you wanted to play a computer game, it came on a cassette from WH Smith or John Menzies. And the cars launched in the 80s could do 0 to 60 in a scarcely believable 7 seconds, and had nearly 300 brake horsepower, the stuff of a madman's dreams. Console games like Gran Turismo allowed us to drive all the cars we couldn't yet afford, and it's no surprise that the stars of that game, the Nissan Skyline GTR, Honda NSX and Subaru Impreza, are so highly coveted now. When I first got my shiny new driving license, the cars that were new are the ones I am most keen to own now. What I wouldn't give for a Wankel-engined Mazda RX-7, the low-slung menace of the Nissan 300 ZX, a peachy first-gen MX-5, an Escort Corsa, Renault 5 Turbo or a Sierra Sapphire Cosworth. And of course a black Supra Turbo, like the one I missed at auction and I am annoyed about every single day. A shortage of cars. Basic economics states that when there is a high demand and lack of supply, values will increase. Why is there a lack of 80s and 90s cars, I hear you ask? Surely they made millions of them, especially when it comes to Fords and Nissans and Mazdas. The whole point was that car companies tried to sell as many as possible, right? Well, yes and no. At the time, thousands and often tens of thousands of these cars were sold. They were ubiquitous. But today, there are hardly any left, especially in original condition. And this is because of many factors, notably reliability, rust and fragility, wrecks, scrappage schemes, and obsolescence. A quick look at how many left.co.uk confirms the dwindling numbers. 10 years ago, there were 288 Ford Escort XR3i's in the UK. Now, there are just 118. There were 1,900 Peugeot 205 GTI's in 2012. Now, there are just 985. So with only a finite number of highly desirable 80s and 90s cars to spread amongst a whole generation of rose-tinted Gen Xers, is it any wonder that these cars are now rocketing in value? Will it continue? Almost certainly, yes. But what are the next group of cars that are set to break auction records? Think of the ones launched in the early to mid 2000s like the Renault Clio V6, Civic Type R, Ford GT, Subaru Impreza P1, Nissan GTR, Honda S2000, BMW M3 CSL and the BMW Z8. So there you are, that is why we have just seen nearly £600,000 paid for a Sierra RS500 Cosworth, a car that probably until recently would have been no more than 120,000. And this phenomenon is just going to continue. This makes it especially annoying for people like me who dithered and did not jump on these sort of cars 5 or 6 years earlier, which I almost certainly should have done. I did pick up my Honda NSX, so I do have a good one of those, and it is one of my favourite cars in the collection. But crucially, I didn't pick up all the others, and just recently I'll tell you about the fact that I missed out on a Toyota Supra turbo in black with tan leather, low mileage, 1 or maybe 2 owners, completely unmolested, the car I've been searching for the last 10 years. And I missed it. I missed buying this car. It went for about £45,000, which in itself is incredible for a Toyota Supra. But for me, that was the one. If you bought that car and perhaps you're regretting spending £45,000 on it, please get in touch so I know, perhaps more than most of the other YouTubers out there, exactly what this phenomenon is about, exactly how powerful it is, and exactly why these cars are going for such top money. Thank you for watching this episode on 80s and 90s car appreciation. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful and entertaining. If you like what we're doing on The Car Guys, please subscribe, leave comments and likes, and there'll be another episode next week.